international speakers. So that's my only comment. I think I said the same thing last year. Other people have said the same thing as well, not looking at Renee in particular.
Yeah, actually, I get an request from the sponsor that we should publish our schedule earlier so that they can schedule their sponsorship, they can schedule budget to sponsor your event. Yeah, we tend to announce our event pretty much in last minutes, but it's not good for the sponsors. So even sponsors need to prepare for your event. So any kind of information, like you have some target, like this September or November-ish, then you should put that information on your website or NSRC calendar so that you can get more sponsorship. So it's beneficial for your stability as well. So Gavin,
one.
I noticed you need Renee.
1 week? 2 days.
Delivery.
Oh, thank you, Meta.
if you want to make a comment, please raise your hand, then it's your turn. Yep.
Hi everyone. I think that most of us will have some issues because that the inflations and all the things, the price get up, and like for example this year we get more participants, so we need to move to the larger space. At the same time, some of the space don't have enough like booth space. Any idea how can we tackle that?
Yes.
Honestly, for Apricot, we find some of the sponsors don't want booths. So maybe consider other things, see if they actually really want a booth or they just feel obligated to take a booth. They might actually be willing to pay the same amount for the rest of it and not actually have a booth.
Yeah, actually at the JAG, almost 1/3 of the space is dedicated to the sponsor booth. Yeah, because we have 140 plus sponsors. Oh yeah, so for that, we need to carefully select the venue because if the sponsor booth is far away from the main conference hall, then people don't go to the sponsor booth. So we have a good schedule and good design to put the sponsor booth. So sometimes because of the limitation of the venue, we put sponsor booth in several rooms, and it's pretty packed. So people cannot go through without pushing each other. So that was happened, and the sponsor was not that happy. So need to think about the venue. So, but luckily we have several convention centers and then big hotels. So we carefully picking such a place for our event now. And any other? Yes.
I have a question, a statement and a question. First, the statement is that NZNOG's perennial sponsor has been .nz, so the organization that takes money from our national domain name. Are there any other NOGs in the region that are being supported by their CCTLD? Paul, is Malaysia getting any support from .my? None. Okay.
To be honest, if you look at even like the participants in Apricot, right, you don't really see any government agencies here. We also wonder why they don't participate.
No CCTLD operators here.
No.
Yeah, there we go.
Kavindra, NPNOG. So basically like the .np is free, so they don't have money. So they normally don't sponsor NPNOG, but they do send people to participate in the NPNOG.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Just a comment from me from outside the region. UKNOF had been going for many, many years, and Nominate, the .UK organization, didn't really support us except sending a couple of speakers every now and again, and maybe once giving us some sponsorship money, but that was it. However, when we decided that we would close UKNOF down, they then approached and said, "How can we help?" So Nominate have been passed on to the new organization that's going to continue with UKNOF.
That's an interesting topic.
Sanog, I don't know the purpose of the question, but I do know that Nixie sponsors our NOG. So probably that is one example in India.
As a regional organization, I think SANOG should be getting sponsorship from .Asia. Are you?
Say that again?
You, as a regional organization, I think SANOG should be getting sponsorship from .Asia. Are you getting any sponsorship from .Asia?
Not yet. Why don't you tell them?
Yeah, we need to be about that. Okay. Yes, you need.
So I'm not, hi, it's Nishal. I'm not from your region, but I mean, we all share the same issues, right? In South Africa, the .ZA registrar provides no money to us, but the registry actually partners with us when we do the once a year annual event generally. So they bring in participants and they run their events in parallel. So it's a conjoined event, and that works quite nicely for us. We're doing that in 2 weeks' time.
Again, it's my same question. The purpose of this question, are you saying that the registry should be supporting NOGs? Yeah? Thank you. Just wanted to know.
Yes, yep.
In answer to your question, I think yes, they should, because NOGs are different to what they were 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago. NOGs have evolved, and so I think all NOGs should be thinking about actually how do we go to the next stage and how do we increase participation, because NOGs are not only, in my view, are not only network operators and network engineers. It's much, much wider than that. You've got network automation, you've got AI, you've got DNS, you've got V6, okay, that's part of networking anyway, but you've got DNS and you've got all these other things which are coming along, and they all are affected by network operations and network engineering. And anyone who's affected by network operations and network engineering needs to be participating and supporting. So yeah, in those terms, the registries especially should be.
Yep. I think it's good to have a local sponsor for the NOG, so like CCTV registry, also big telecom and such. But of course, you shouldn't rely on such a big ones only to have a stable and also involvement from the wider community. So it's better to have some local, medium or smaller class sponsors as well to get people involved. So do you want to say something? No, just talking, yeah.
Pensri, can you speak for .th?
Yeah, actually, .th. We help build Thai NOG for the first time, and we also sponsor them, like host a meeting and also their annual meeting, something that none already presented. We're trying to get others operators to join the NOG, but you can see they hardly get deeply involved. Normally, none will be the main part, but we expected that once they see your group like this, they will join and more active. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So sponsor is important, but also I think the committee member or secretariat to organize the meeting is important. I'd like to ask UKNOF to share their experience and decisions.
In what way? Please expand on that. Why did we shut down? Okay. Over time, we found that
So UKNOF is shut down.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. So UKNOF shut down, and it was a difficult decision. UKNOF had been going since 2005, and back in September we did our 52nd meeting. We saw a long period of growth. We were 50 people attending to begin with. That suddenly went to 100 people, and then we needed to find a bigger venue. We needed to find more sponsorship, and then there was a step change, and we hit up to 450 people per meeting, and then the sponsors were coming in. And then what we found was, and this is the thing, is that I was quite surprised to see free registration, which UKNOF did in the beginning, but because we were growing and we wanted to expand the community and the participation, we didn't want to say, okay, we are limiting number of places. So we had to look for bigger spaces, which means more professional spaces, which means less donated spaces, which means more sponsorship. But if sponsors are then saying, we're not doing industry meetings anymore, what we are doing is we are going to go to exhibitions and conventions, because it's all about sales and sales and sales. That means our sponsorships were falling. So then we started looking at how to bring in more revenue via different routes. So we started a patronage scheme. We also started registrations, but the UK community is not very good when it comes to registration. When we were saying that each delegate costs about £250 per day, including food, the venue, and the time that people spend, people were like, no, we don't even want to pay £50. So there was this disconnect. So we started looking at, okay, well, how much sponsorship do we need to bring in? How much patronage do we need to bring in? And that takes time. And that's pretty much like nearly a full-time job for someone. And if you can't afford to pay someone for a full-time job, then you're not sustainable. So that's pretty much where UKNOF became unsustainable, because there was no income coming in. COVID didn't help. We went online. We tried to stay relevant. We did online only meetings once every 2 months, but that ate into our reserves. And someone mentioned keeping an eye on reserves is important. It's really, really important, because if you eat through those reserves, you can't survive. But anyway, we tried to keep going, but yeah, we made the tough decision to shut it down in its current form and hand it over to the community for whoever comes along and takes over.
So after that, do you have any form of the new committee or?
There was, well, no, I can't see anyone in the room who's involved in the new organization. So we had an annual meeting recently, a UKNOF annual meeting in January, and we invited people to come along and give their proposals. Only one set of people came along, from what I understand, and it's going to be a new organization with a governance structure. And a membership, and they've got backing from Nominet, Links, and LONAP. But I do have my own personal thoughts on this. I mean, I've walked away, and I can't say what a new organization should do. But if a NOG is only doing meetings and nothing else, then why does it need a governance structure? Why does it need a governance structure? Because I question it, because in my view, you spend more time getting the governance right rather than doing what's right for the community. So that's my question: is if it's in meetings in events only organization, why is the governance structure needed? But that's my only comment on that. But good luck to the new organization, and we will, as outgoing board members and outgoing people who ran UKNOF, we will support the new organization, and we will give them our support and our advice if we get asked about it.
Okay, I'd like to answer your question. Any organization that has reserves, that has financial reserves, needs a governance structure. There's no getting around that.
I'm kind of a minor, right? So 2 items. One is picking up on that topic, right, about CCTLD support. To be fair, we haven't reached out to them. And this goes back to our early days of inception, where we did reach out to regulators. I don't want to name them, right? But regulators, and we nearly got sucked into the internal politics of that ecosystem, right? where we even had to change venue the last 2 weeks before the event. So that was about 12 years back, right? So to be fair, maybe it's been 12 years. Maybe it's time for us to get more friendlier to regulators. So just sharing the experience, right? And I think too, speaking up on the operation structure, I think Philip touched on it, right? And we just recently touched on it as well. I realized that VNOX, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So VNOX rarely talk about operational structure, right? Openly, right? Sharing about, because there's no one size fits all, right? So there are trust models with full-fledged boards, the informal models, there are even non-profit, right? Or even just legal entities, right? In our case, we started as an informal form, but eventually, when we started dealing with bigger sponsors, right, there was a requirement for credibility. So that's when we kind of decided to set up a legal entity, but we took time to think about it, because once you set up a legal entity, there's no turning back, right? It's a commitment. So I think we should spend more time talking about operation structure, just more sharing experiences, because I've heard from upcoming new NOCs where they kind of I kind of consider growing pains, where as they grow, they kind of get stuck into this dilemma of, do we still stick to being informal and dependent on API to kind of help us out? Philip, thanks for all the support in the early days. And should we move towards much more legal entity, or even to full-fledged, non-profit or trusting model, right, with governance in place? I think more sharing of this would kind of, bring out more discussions and help the newcomers with the thought process of dealing with how they want to continue in terms of running their NOCs. So I think there needs to be more open talks about operational structures. Yeah, but we have to be careful that it doesn't distract away from what the intention of the NOG is. But I think open discussions kind of helps the different NOCs who needs different size fit, or different sizes fit different NOC they call it models, right? So yeah, that's one thing I wanted to bring it up. Okay.
So now,
So maybe I a little bit off the topic, but so I wonder, I ask the comment from everyone. So I have personally, I have the feeling that to run the NOC, when the undergraduate has to come to the work life, I think they kind of have no idea how the network run until they work for some time, for example 20 years, until they can join the event. I think it's kind of bit little delay or long for them to know or realize how to know the next work. So is there any solution or possible thing that we can push them to come into have the participation quickly? I'm not sure. This is the one thing that happened a lot in Thailand. Yeah.
very much. Do you have any answer or comment, suggestion? Achi, do you have any?
Yeah, for Philippines, it's totally different because the NOG concept is actually something that's not really accepted. Volunteer work is, why are you gonna do it? How are you compensated? It's always like measured that way. So I always get a question that, how come you have extra time to do, other stuff? But they don't understand that you do this like after 5 p.m. and you sleep like early in the morning, but you do it because you like it. And sometimes it escalates because it seems that you provide more time for the community versus your day job. But I mean, you still make sure you do what you're supposed to do based on your day job. At the end of the day, it escalates to some point that you're not supposed to do it. But on the other side, you kind of influence someone to extend extra time. But for that part, the extra time is acceptable, but they can't attend like Apricot or other conferences abroad because the company will not support them because that's not part of their job. So I can't actually hand off to the next generation handling the NOG because they're not exposed enough to to do it. And we tried to do it actually, but on the last minute you have to step in to make sure everything is running. It's something internally we're trying to sort out, but I don't have a specific answer yet.
Yeah, it is quite difficult actually, because the thing is that getting something up and running like that can take time. So I founded PT-NOG a few years ago, and it took me 4 years to get it off the ground because I was looking for support from local Portuguese organizations, the big players, and the culture, the work culture and the business culture there is completely different to the rest of Europe in what I experienced. So it took a number of years, and also it was a case of, well, why would Portuguese companies want to deal with a Brit? So I went looking for co-founders, and once I got the co-founders, it was much easier. So you've got to go with the culture of the place, and no NOG is going to be the same as another in that way. What I found is that, when we created PT-NOG, we also created something called Lisbon Net. And Lisbon Net was just an informal evening thing just for a couple of hours. So whereas PT-NOG was a full day thing, which was fairly formal, Lisbon Net was basically just an evening for a couple of hours. Anyone could come along and you didn't need to have slides. And it was a nice way for people to come into the PT-NOG community. So there are different ways of doing it, but the biggest challenge is how do you encourage people to become part of that community? How do you encourage people to become volunteers? And that is a really big challenge, and it takes a lot of work. The only thing I can say is just keep at it, really. And since deciding what to do with UK North, my mindset has changed slightly, and my mindset is now that actually, especially in for things like UK or even PT, is that actually the big infrastructure players in those countries need to run the NOGs. So if my perfect scenario would be Links, LONAP, Nominet, ISOC, and other non-profit infrastructure organizations within the UK actually getting together and running it together as a joint project. That way, you would get people from you'd get their own constituents coming in. You'd get the younger generations coming, people who are interested. So you not only have you got policy and governance covered, you've got the DNS covered, you've got the network engineering covered, and you've got all those outside all those delegates that go to those particular organizations who will then get involved. But this is an evolution, and this is why I said earlier that NOGs need to evolve. You can't stay as a NOG was 20 years ago, or even 30 years ago, or even 10 years ago. There needs to be constant evolution in the way that NOGs are and what they are.
Thank you very much.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, I just want to share one case which I witnessed, and I think it can be a reference to you. I cannot name names. There's one NOG which has an informal setup, and because they run events, so they need to rely on a third-party legal entity to help out, and the third-party legal entity is in the same industry. But after some years, they have accumulated reserve, but some part of the research is gone, and they had to accept it. And of course, it's without their agreement. But I think if you don't have a formal setup, if you don't have control of your bank account, you may run into issue like this. And it's a true story. That's all I want to say.
Thank you very much. Shaila?
Hi, I'm Shaila. Nowadays, when I register for an event like Apricot or Ethnic, I go to the registers list and see that who have registered over there. and I search with one word that is like bank. Okay. So when I put the input bank, I see not more than 4 to 5 participants from bank. So when I was presenting my BDNOG presentation, I wrote over there, I was reading over there that it's a forum. The NOGs are the forum for the ICT people who works for the different kind of enterprises, banks, telecom, and ISPs, IIGs. But like in the real picture, we see most of the people are from internet business, basically. But you will see very less people from banks or pharmaceuticals or other companies. So this is one thing. Like before, first I used to work for a telecom and later on ISP. And recently, in last 4 years back, I shifted to the bank. And after shifting to bank, then I realized like, okay, these people are they're like very less people who are coming to NOGs or like Ethnic or Apricot. But what I'm trying for last 2 or 3 BDNOG conferences, like I'm trying to inform to my bank colleagues, because like currently I'm working from working in Prime Bank. It has a huge network. It has a huge network, and my previous bank, Black Bank, it also had a huge network, and they had a huge number of network engineers. And also in my current bank, they have like 12 engineers, and my previous bank had like 18 or 19 network engineers only. So they're working like, they're doing the same thing. They're doing the BGP, they're using OSPF and everything. Okay, they have firewall, they have proxy and everything, but still, they're not coming this kind of discussion. Why they're not here? Where they're going for the all other kind of workshop and discussion. So this is one thing. So what was happened in last BDNOG, in BDNOG 17, I have, I got like 9 person from different banks. Okay, they were like participating in the workshop. They were not that much interested for the conferences, but like they managed time to attend the workshop. Okay, so this is one thing I felt like, okay, if we are continuing this kind of conference, we should actually attract more diverse kind of people who are working in ICT industries. Okay, thank you.
Hello, yeah, it's Onchu from MNOG. I want to ask one thing that it's always hard to find out the local papers, local speakers, and how to influence those people to get on the stage. Like, any suggestions?
Local speaker.
Yeah.
Yes, I think just to add to that, and even I was thinking of the same question that he was asking. Nowadays, I think it's getting little difficult to get public presentation. I just wanted to understand that there are very less NOG representatives left in this meeting room. Just wanted to understand. Probably Philip can also answer to this, because as a program committee chair, it's getting a little difficult. As in the past, the people used to share their experiences, share their resources. Right now, it's getting difficult, and whatever presentations are done across the different NOGs, some of the NOGs might have a very good presentation by somebody, and that's not coming through to other NOGs, right? So that's something that we need to talk about and think. But that's just something that I thought maybe I'll share, that yes, in my view, both in the purview of NPNOG as well as SANOG, I see that the paper submissions are not coming through very naturally. People have to be pushed, as he mentioned. Yes, that's the scenario right now. So how do we get that? And how do we get the good presentations of good experience sharing, good research paper that's presented in different NOGs can be shared with other NOGs? So.
So my first thing is just in response to the BDNOG lady. I'm sorry, I missed your name. We've recently had a odd request come through where our sort of the IT companies or managed service providers have asked, like, is this event suited to them? Where many of their technicians are of a they're not quite on that level of the bank's engineers, but they've basically asked us to see if we can't do a second side event for them. And then someone suggested, well, that's the ideal way to get more people into our side, because the more experienced people from the second event can come to the first event. So almost treat it as a feeder event. We haven't gotten to implementing any of it, but it might happen soon. But also just short, small, cheap events like an evening with beer and whatnot, or well, milk or whatever people drink. But keeping it simple, and then just having maybe 2 of these events and feeding your community. Because let's be honest, I don't know, but I'm from South Africa, so our community is being exported to Europe and to other places where pays seem bigger. We're trying to keep them with these smaller events, but we also don't have much feed from the bottom. So that might be one way for people to get their communities to grow. And then on the speakers side, yes, in South Africa, we have the same issue of getting speakers to come forward and talk. But what we've realized recently is if you allow people who might not have the most polished talk, but even if it's something that we might not think is special, but someone else in the room thinks it's special, it lets people realize that, okay, actually, this is a safe zone, because many people are very, very afraid of coming to speak in front of people that they think are better, higher, or whatever than them. So allowing something simple to be spoken about regularly perhaps helps feed that process a bit better. We're seeing here and there a couple more people volunteer since we've allowed simpler topics. Yes, sometimes it's hit and miss, but consider allowing simpler topics in as well.
Yeah, I see even in this room, I see some fears to speak up.
I just also want to share on the speaker side, where I'm called for presentation side. I think we also have the same issues. Is very hard to get people to submit the papers. So what we usually try to do is, I will go to LinkedIn and see a list of people that might have interesting topics and trying to reach out to them. Sometimes it helps because even though they cannot make it, they will also send people from the region to come for the event. To touch point on the second thing, which is the presentation is not flowing to other NOG. So what we usually do is we will tell speakers that when you submit one paper to one NOG, you can submit to other NOGs as well. That's what we're trying to help other NOGs to get the same paper as well.
I'll keep it short, right? On the topic of broader audience, I think about 5-6 years back, we were conscious of the fact that usually the usual suspects are the same faces that you see every year turns up for your NOG events, and we realized that we had to widen our definition of network operators, right? Rather than just ISPs, operators, and CDNs, right? So I think the first thing we did was we wanted to approach academia, right? So the first thing we did was we kind of just went to one of the universities and asked whether they would give in-kind sponsorship of venue for workshops, right? And we gave them a few seats for lecturers to come in. And then eventually it kind of spread, and we started having about 20 to 30% participation from just the academia community. And we even started seeing students coming in now, right? So that is on the academia side. And then we started realizing how can we attract the corporate sides, the enterprises, the SMEs, or even the startups. So I think we started approaching those industry associations. If you ask me, frankly, has it been 100% successful? No, but we haven't given up, right? So we will keep on knocking the doors and go through these parties, right? Broader umbrellas. And I think last but not least, we came out a controversial move. I think about 2 years back, we introduced something called business track, right? So what we did was we carved out top sponsors, we give them slots to speak about services, products, or whatever you run. But we were very conscious about not eroding our core principles, right? So they are carved out and kept out of the main track, right? We give them a separate room. We kind of clearly discriminate them by stating this is sponsored talks and stuff like that. And we leave it up to them to pull in the audience, right? And what we realized is that, and it was an experiment. It wasn't a long-term plan. So what happened, we realized was that these guys who were speaking at a business track, they found creative ways of pulling in a larger audience. They were giving vouchers to customers, right? So indirectly, we were bringing in audience that were never a target audience in the first place, right? And we started seeing enterprises coming in. And it wasn't planned in such a way. We just wanted to give a platform for vendors to just speak about their products, but it kind of evolved into that, and we started growing our audience, right? But I think the thing is that even if you just keep on knocking the doors, eventually someone will decide to open the door and start walking in, I guess. Yeah.
Just very quickly, this may not apply for the more established NOGs, but something that I have observed for LANOG in November last year was that from the very beginning, they kind of instilled the idea to the participants that this is your NOG. This is a local NOG. This is not for the international folks. We may invite one or two, but we will limit it at that. So majority of the talks during the day, I think with the exception of me and Nichelle, everything was in the local language, and they're quite comfortable with it. So I think it's getting the community together by knowing that like what they will get out of the day are things that really apply to them because they get that from someone who has the same background, who has experienced the same things, who may be trying to troubleshoot the same problems. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We have many good and this both, and then but we can continue our discussion during the midday EC session because we have beer or beverage and then soft drink there. Thank you very much for joining us today, and let's continue the NOG. Thank you very much.
I long to see the sunlight in your hair and tell you time and time again how much I care. Sometimes I feel my heart will overflow. Hello. Ooh, I just got to let you know, 'cause I wonder where you are, and I wonder what you do. Are you somewhere feeling lonely, or is someone loving you? Tell me how in your heart, for I haven't got a clue. But let me start by singing, oh, I love you. Hello, is it me you're looking for? 'Cause I wonder what you are, and I wonder what. Are you somewhere feeling lonely, or is someone loving you? Tell me how you will. I don't even have a clue, but let me start by saying, I love you. know that you've been good to me. And I know it's just a rumor spreading in this town. And I know, that it's a thing I don't believe. 'Cause you know I'd never let you down, baby. This is love that you see on my face, and it's impossible to erase. Still, it scares me when I hear what I hear. You see, everybody's talking, and they whisper in my ear. But I know about their jealousy, and I know about the tongue that's growing in this